Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Ivana's Lunch Break Live. My name is Ivana Harinkyu, and I am your host today. Thank you for coming back. And if you're new here, thanks for joining us. Today is Friday, March the 10th, and today I am joined by Dr. Ray Watts. Now, you might know Dr. Watts as a neurologist at UAB, but you also might know him as the president of UAB. He is now marking this week, just finishing his 10th year as president at the university, and that makes him UAB's longest serving president. Dr. Watts, there's a lot to talk about here. I know this has been a big week. This is a big anniversary for you, but just how does it feel being able to go down again in history so far as the longest serving president of UAB?
Well, I'm proud to be a UAB employee like everyone else who works here because of the great impact that we have on people's lives every day. And our students, our faculty, our staff, our alumni, our community supporters are just the finest people you'll find anywhere.
Well, and I'll go ahead and give my disclosure as well that I'm a UAB graduate as well, Dr. Watts. And something that I think is really interesting is the last 10 years of UAB history has been, I think, one for the record books, not necessarily on numbers that specifically are tied to it. We know enrollment has grown. We know that research has grown and jobs have grown, but also just the atmosphere of UAB. There was a long time comment about UAB that it was just a commuter school. Also, that people just thought of UAB as a medical school or a nursing school. But in the last 10 years, that's really changed. Can you tell me about that and how you feel about that?
Well, now we're one of the leading comprehensive research universities in America, and we have paid a lot of attention to developing our campus into a green, welcoming environment and building buildings with a lot of glass so you can see inside and outside. And we are a tree campus USA, i.e. we have a lot of trees, and we've got 4,500 trees on our urban campus of about 110 blocks.
110 blocks. That is just overwhelming. Now, again, people used to just say, well, UAB is just for people that maybe work during the day and need to go to school at night, or maybe people who are going back to school. It's not targeted towards the people who are just getting out of high school and wanting the traditional college experience. What do you say to those people?
Well, we have 80+% of our freshman class live on campus because when they're immersed in campus life as well as classroom life, they do better and they graduate with a much higher percentage. And we do have online courses and a diversity of ways to present courses, but no, we're an urban residential campus now.
And also tell me again about the types of degrees that UAB has been offering in the last 10 years, in addition to those medical degrees, in addition to those nursing and research degrees. Maybe the people who are not quite so right-brained, as we say.
Well, we have the whole spectrum from the arts to the sciences with the social sciences and language and literature in between. We have new degrees that we've used combinations of our strengths. We have an undergraduate degree in neuroscience. We have the first undergraduate degree in the country in cancer biology. We have an undergraduate degree in bioinformatics, which is becoming more and more important as we move into an era of sequencing our genomes and genomic or precision medicine. So cybersecurity, you name it.
And I know again that you are a physician, you're a neurologist. How do you balance that with being president of UAB? I know you're still seeing patients actually.
I do. I see patients every week. It is a balancing act, but I enjoy it and it keeps me grounded as a physician and it keeps me on the forefront of the healthcare front lines, as well as being president and being responsible for the entire university. It's a great privilege and an honor, but it is a big challenge.
Well, and again, you were so immersed in the medical side of things before you took over as president. Was that kind of a learning curve to kind of step into a role that wasn't just so medically based? I mean, there is a medical component of that, but then you've got a whole campus to deal with now. You've got students to deal with now. And again, other degrees that you might not have gone through and experienced.
Well, yes, it was a learning curve. It took me a year or two to come up to speed and to get used to it. But I spent most of my time during those first few years on the rest of the campus because I've been at every level throughout the medical school, from a faculty member to a department chair to a dean to vice president and then to president.
And again, exploring that 110 block campus is quite a feat there. Now, you mentioned your first couple of years serving as president, and that did not come without its share of controversy there. We know that UAB cut its football program there not long after you stepped in 2014. That was something that upset a lot of people. Since then, we do know that UAB football was reinstated. They have a new stadium downtown that is a little bit off of the UAB campus, but much closer than where the team was playing over at Legion Field. Tell me a little bit about that decision and thinking back on that decision, if you would have done anything differently.
Well, we were coming out of the recession at that time. So there were challenges and obviously financial challenges, but most importantly, I wanted to make sure we were using our resources for maximum impact. So we went through a strategic planning process, and every unit looked at their performance, at their budget, and so forth. And athletics was losing money every year. So we had to decide how to deal with that. And we decided at the time that if we didn't have adequate community and alumni support, then perhaps we should do away with it, and made that decision. I tried to spare everybody else the pain, so I bore it myself. But I learned through that experience that let everybody make the hard decisions together. So now, since then, every major decision we've had to make, we've made together, and it's been a better outcome. And so that was a learning curve, and I know it was a difficult time for everyone, but we came out of it better than ever. Since 2015, we raised $71 million to support athletics. Before that, we barely raised $1 million a year.
That's a huge discrepancy, huge number there. And again, if you have not been to Protective Stadium, that is one thing that you've got to do if you are in Birmingham. Now, another thing, and I know we talked about this a little bit before you and I went live here, but another thing that I'm sure, other than ending football, that you didn't have on your president bucket card or your bucket list there is the pandemic. Leading not only a university through a pandemic, which dealt with students, virtual classes, canceling classes, but you also had to deal with the medical side of UAB, just the mammoth that medical side played into it for both the research purposes, treating COVID patients, running clinics and testing sites, vaccine sites. That is a mammoth undertaking. Tell me a little bit about that, about running both pieces of UAB through the pandemic.
Well, once again, we did it as a leadership team. Everybody bore some of the responsibility. But it was 24/7, 365 for 2 years. We're now the 8th largest hospital in America, over 1,200 beds. And at the peak, we had over 300 patients in the hospital, very sick with COVID. We had 4 of our ICUs occupied with very sick patients. And it was really hard on our medical staff, our nursing staff, our other hospital staff. It was a very difficult time, but the resilience of our people, they were willing to do whatever it took and work hard, extra hard, to get us through that. And as you know, we helped Birmingham, we helped our neighborhood, we helped the state. We helped other colleges and universities do testing when we were considering coming back to class. But we just fortunately have the expertise to be able to do that. And we felt like it was our responsibility to do as much as we could for the citizens of Alabama, but also the citizens of our country and around the world.
Well, and another thing that UAB really did throughout the pandemic, especially in those early days and then kind of in the resurgence days, was getting out information. We know that there was changing information coming out about the virus, about its effects, and about vaccines. Not necessarily changing information based on something that wasn't true, but it was changing information based on the science and what we started learning as we kind of sat in that pandemic a little bit more. Communication is key. Getting out the word and getting out the information is one of the most important things you can do. Was that something that you really championed there, was wanting to inform Alabamians about what was going on and what the science was?
Yes, we did. Our communications team and our medical experts were communicating every day on new developments. And it was important for our people. Right now, post-pandemic, we forget a little bit about how frightening it was during those early days, early months until we had a vaccine. And so communication was absolutely key.
Well, and then again, you had to deal with the university side of that. So not only are you, and you are a medical professional, so I'm sure your mind is racing through all of the medical parts of this. You also have to think that you have thousands of students and thousands of students who have nothing to do with the medical side of campus who are saying, do I go back to class? Do I get to graduate? Do I get to walk after maybe being the first in my family to graduate school? How did you deal with that?
Well, we worked as a team again. We had great cooperation from our information technology team, from our faculty and staff, and we pivoted from in-class activity to virtual within 8 or 9 days. And that was a real massive effort. But we knew our students needed to continue to learn. And we were able to do that and then do hybrid before we came back in person once we had a vaccine and everybody was getting over the pandemic.
Dr. Watts, there's been a lot happen in the last 10 years. I know we've touched on some of it again. We know enrollment numbers have skyrocketed. Research, I believe, has more than doubled their research funding, has more than doubled their economic impact, more than doubled since 2013. What's next for UAB?
Well, we need to continue to meet the needs of our students. We need to meet the needs of our citizens in Birmingham. We have a grand challenge where we're trying to raise the health assessments and improve health across Birmingham and across the state over the coming decade. And that's a big lift because Alabama ranks in the lower ranks in health metrics such as hypertension, high blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease. And we want to take the person power at UAB and put together a plan where we improve the health across the entire state.
That's a big undertaking.
It is.
Now, what next for the campus? I know if anybody drives around the South Side, drives around that large swath of UAB campus, you see a lot of construction, see a lot of those new buildings you were talking about with the glass. It's not necessarily the old red brick buildings. So what is next for the campus development?
Well, as you mentioned, we have a building of our campus master plan. We have probably 5 or 6 buildings going up right now, being renovated. And over the last 10 years, we've invested over $1 billion in our facilities here through the university and the hospital and health system. And we'll probably invest that much again over the next 10 years. We've had great support from our board of trustees, from our system, from our community, and from our own people. So we're excited about where we are, and we're continuing to renew. We got a big new hospital tower going up. It's an inpatient rehab facility. We're finishing the first phase of our science and engineering complex, about to enter the next phase in the next year. We're renovating one of our older buildings to become a new world-class genomic medicine and data sciences building. We've got a new biomedical sciences building ready to break ground within the next year. We're building a large new child care center for our employees and our students. And we're building a new student activities building where our student organizations can come together and really learn to grow outside of the classroom, grow in leadership and service.
I don't know that any college or university can say they've got that many new buildings in the works. I think that that is probably unique there to UAB. Dr. Watts, I got to ask you, what's your favorite part of campus? Either your favorite little corner, your favorite building, and it can't be your office.
Well, there are a lot of favorite parts of campus. I think the campus green and how it's beautified and grown, and trees and flowers. We tried to really improve the landscaping around campus. So it's not just an urban campus with red brick buildings built up to the sidewalk. And it's made everybody feel very positive and proud of our campus. And we want it to be a welcoming place as well for our students, for our employees, for our faculty, but also for our patients. We saw last year about 2 million patient visits, which calculates to about 40 or 50,000 patients a week coming to our campus. And they're coming with very serious illnesses. And we want them to come and find a welcoming environment where both the looks, the cleanliness, the attraction of the campus, but also to come and meet our wonderful people The great thing about UAB is we combine excellence, competence with compassion. When you have those together, you got a powerful combination.
10 years is a long time. Are you saying that this is, or let me rephrase that, 10 years is a long time. Are you going to do another 10 years, or do you think that 1 decade is enough?
Well, I still love coming to work every day. We've got so much important work to do together as a campus, as a community. And no, I'm not planning to retire anytime soon. I'm excited. I'm enjoying myself. And I still get to see patients every week. I still teach our residents and fellows, see our students, and spend time with them. So it's all very rewarding to me.
Dr. Watts, again, celebrating the 10th year there as president of UAB, longest serving president in UAB history. Thank you so much for your time today, for sharing a little bit about the last 10 years and also what is next. I think anybody that lives in Alabama, anybody that lives in Birmingham knows what a powerhouse UAB is. And especially if you drive downtown, you can't go very far without seeing something UAB related or something campus related. So again, Dr. Watts, thank you so much for your time. Everybody watching, thank you. We have one of our reporters wrote a profile of Dr. Watts and the last 10 years this week. Going to leave a link here so you can check that out as well. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.